Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to today's show. And today I'm going to talk about creating the impossible. Creating the impossible. So let me know in the comments below if you are watching the replay. Type in hashtag replay in the comments below. If you are watching it live, let me know if you are live. So, this topic, creating the impossible, if you just look at the word impossible, it it just it pulls you down, isn't it? The word impossible, it just pulls you down, and it's like, oh, it's really not possible. Hi, Manjari, good to have you live. So you kind of go, oh, it's impossible, and it just puts you in that really low energy, low vibration kind of a mode, right? But if you change this to I am possible, I am possible, what occurs? Suddenly you're like, oh, this is possible. So literally it's your perception. How are you looking at things? So the first tool that I would like to share with you here is this, that if you look at something and you decide that it is impossible, then guess what? It is impossible, because your thoughts create your reality. And so if you look at something and you go, this is impossible, then you're right, it is going to be impossible. You're going to create circumstances which will prove to you that it is impossible. And if you look at something and just go, I wonder what is possible here, let me explore. If you have this thing of curiosity, of wonder, then what's going to happen is that you're going to open yourself up to having infinite possibilities show up for you. Okay, does that make sense? Because really, it's what we define things as, what perception we have about things. So if we define things as something, if we have a specific perception about something, then guess what? We are going to end up creating that. So the circumstances show up which will give us proof of our perceptions. Okay, so the good news here is that if circumstances show up which give us proof of our perceptions, then all you have to do is you have to actually change your perceptions. And so if you change your perceptions, what's going to occur is that your experience of something, your experience of what shows up in your reality is going to really change. Okay, so look at something in your life that you would like to actualize, that you would like to show up in this physical reality, and which feels like it's impossible right now. Think about something, anything that you may have. Just think about it, and now look at it and go, I wonder what is possible with this. I wonder what is possible with this. And then just play around with it. Just play around with it. You can go, okay, I wonder what is possible with this, and I'm just going to open myself up to receive more possibilities around it. And even though right now I don't see any possibilities in this situation, I don't see how this thing can actually show up in my life, I'm still going to go to wonder. I'm just going to wonder about the possibilities around it. So, this is like a really small shift. This is just a shift from looking at things as impossible to looking at things as something could be possible. right? Just something could be possible. And once you just have even that tiny little bit of shift in your thinking, that tiny shift in your thinking is going to attract to you many different possibilities. It's going to attract you many different possibilities. But if you do not have that tiny shift, then what's going to happen is that what's going to show up in your reality is that this is not possible. Okay, so number one, instead of expecting, or instead of having a point of view that something is impossible, just start exploring what else is possible with that. What else is possible with that? I mean, sometimes I've literally just used those words, what else is possible here? And I will kind of just keep saying that over and over and over again. And I invite you to play with those four words. It's a question, what else is possible here? And there have been times when I really did not see any possibility in the situation. Sometimes it was to do with things going on in my body. Sometimes it was to do with things going on in my business. Once my PayPal account was blocked, and there seemed to be no way by which, I could access the funds in my PayPal account. So literally what I started doing was, my first knee-jerk reaction was that, that's it, I've lost that money. And it was quite a big sum of money in that PayPal account, right? So what I did was, I'm really very fixed in my point of view that nothing is possible here. So what is showing up is that nothing is possible here. So what if I just started asking what else is possible here? So from that day onwards, every time that I would think of my PayPal account, I would just go, what else is possible here? So before that, every time my PayPal account would come to my awareness, I would just get this really sick feeling in my stomach, and it would just feel yucky. And I would go into that whole thing of, I've lost all that money, I'm never going to get it back, and blah, 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 blah. But then when I flipped it over and I just started asking for what else is possible here, every time every time my PayPal account would come in my awareness, I would just keep asking what else is possible here. And initially, it came up in my awareness a lot, and I had to actually make a habit of asking for other possibilities. I had to train myself to ask for what else is possible here. And I would just, look at my PayPal account and just go, what else is possible here? What else is possible here? I would just keep saying it a lot until, my mind went into some other direction. But I did that. And then what occurred was that it kind of just it just vanished from my awareness. So I stopped thinking about my PayPal account or anything like that. And one day what happened was that I had to make a payment of $1, right? So I used this PayPal account to make that payment. I made that payment, and suddenly I had this aha light bulb moment. I said, oh, I'm able to use my PayPal account. I'm able to make a payment from my PayPal account. And I was like, oh my God, that is super phenomenal. I can just do this. And very quickly, I moved that money out of that PayPal account. So I didn't even realize when, but that account got unlocked and I could access my money again. And at one point I really thought that I had totally lost that money. So the first thing is that there is, if you think it is impossible, it is impossible. But if you kind of just tweak your thinking a little bit and go into it may be possible, or what else is possible here, and go into this with wonder and curiosity, go into this with having no point of view about what that thing is, how that thing is going to show up, nothing like that, but I wonder what else is possible. And so what happens is that you start attracting to yourself all those possibilities, which will make that thing that you think is impossible possible. Okay, that's number one. So how many of you have kind of used this tool? And I'd love to know what are some of the things that you've been able to change using this particular tool. Okay, now, so type it in the comments, and I will go on to the second thing that I wanted to talk about. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about, it comes from the work of Abraham Hicks. And Esther Hicks is the one who channels the energy called Abraham. And she is the original person who has given the law of attraction. And I want to kind of read a little bit from her book called The Astonishing Power of Emotions. Okay, so I'm going to read from it a little bit. I just want to kind of read a little story or a little chapter just to illustrate the tool that I'm going to talk about. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is this thing about being upstream and downstream. Okay, so where do you use the words upstream and downstream? You use the words upstream and downstream when you are talking about, the flow of water. Maybe you're talking about the flow of the river. And so you talk about upstream and downstream, right? So according to according to this tool, what happens is that, if you go with the flow, what happens is that there is ease with everything. Okay, so whatever is happening with you, if you start just going with the flow of things, whatever is showing up in your life, if you start going with the flow of things, what happens is it's just ease, because the current, it carries you along, right? But think of it like this. Say, you're in the river, you're swimming with the flow. So not only the current, then your additional energy is going to propel you in the direction of the flow really, really fast. And you're going to reach your destination really, really fast. But think of it, think of the opposite thing. If you start going against the flow, okay, if you start going against the flow, you're flowing against the current, whatever the current of the river is, or if you're in the river, like literally, and you start swimming against the flow, tell me how easy is it? It's not, right? You really have to struggle a lot, and you will make really slow progress, and you will have to put in a lot of effort. You will have to put in a lot of force into swimming against the flow. So in the same way, when we start swimming against the flow of what life is bringing us, that's when we are putting in a lot of effort, we're putting in a lot of struggle. It's really slow, the progress. It seems to be like, we move one step forward, we move two steps backwards, right? So that's going against the flow. So according to the work of Abraham, Esther, she talks about, and Abraham, they talk about, having downstream thoughts and having upstream thoughts. So remember, I was talking about changing your perspective. In the first tool, I spoke about changing your perspective. Okay, so in this particular tool, we're going to explore more of that. Okay, so when you have downstream thoughts, what happens is that you start to feel better about yourself. So, whatever those thoughts are in that situation, if you start having downstream thoughts, you start to feel better about yourself. If you start having upstream thoughts, you start to feel worse about yourself, you start to feel worse about the situation. Okay? So now, how do you use this tool of using downstream thoughts and using upstream thoughts? Okay. So when you start consciously focusing on downstream thoughts, what occurs is that your energy comes into vibrational alignment with whatever you are asking for. Okay. And just hold on a minute. I'm going to give you a little example. I'm going to read the example from this book. Okay. But I just wanted to explain the concept to you a little bit before we begin. Okay. So when you have downstream thoughts, you start to get vibrationally aligned with whatever you are asking for. Okay. And so every time you do downstream thoughts, you're getting vibrationally aligned with whatever you are asking for. And you will be able to physically actualize it in your universe. So the focus, so Abraham, they talk a lot about this. They talk about, first getting into vibrational alignment with whatever you are asking for, and from that alignment, taking, action. Okay. So I'm going to read a little chapter from this book, the Astonishing Power of Emotions. This is by Esther and Jerry Hicks, and it is the teachings of Abraham. And I hope you will find a value in this. So this is kind of a series of conversation by people who had sent in some questions either in their live workshop, or maybe they got an email or something, and they've answered these questions. And basically, here the tool that they are using is this tool of downstream thoughts and upstream thoughts. Okay. So the question that had come in was, I'm totally disorganized. Okay. So I'd like to be an organized person, but I just can't seem to get it together. I have a variety of interests, and all of them bring a certain amount of stuff with them. So my house is so full of things that are interesting to me, to the point that every place I look, I see clutter. I seem to find the time to think of new projects and gather up more stuff that relates to them, but I don't find the time to put my things in order. I spend a great deal of time just looking for things. Occasionally, I set a day aside with the intention of getting it all cleaned up and organized, but I get bogged down almost as soon as I begin because it just feels so overwhelming to clean it up. I know that I should throw away most of it, but I can't bring myself to do that for fear that as soon as I release it, I'll need it or want it for some reason. So I just keep gathering, and I'm buried in my stuff. I can't delegate these organizational tasks to anyone else because no one else knows what's important to me. And if someone else were to organize it, I still wouldn't know where things are. I know that I need to clean this mess up and get myself organized, but I feel paralyzed. So how many of you feel like this? It may not be to this extent, but at least some part of it, you are like bogged down like clutter with clutter. Okay, let me know clutter in the comments if this is you. Okay, so let's read further. Let's read what Abraham has to say with this using upstream downstream thoughts. Okay, this is a good opportunity to point out the effect that the law of attraction has upon you in whatever your current situation is. You look around at the clutter, which causes you to feel overwhelmed, and because you feel overwhelmed, you are incapable of doing anything about the clutter. So perhaps you can now recognize that your work right now is not to deal with the mess, for you have already acknowledged that you are paralyzed and cannot deal with it. So remember, I spoke about this, that, first you have to get vibrationally aligned and then you take action. So if you are not vibrationally aligned and you go to clean clutter, you will just end up feeling overwhelmed, okay? And you will not be able to do anything, okay? So perhaps you can now recognize that your work right now is not to deal with the mess, for you have already acknowledged that you are paralyzed and cannot deal with it. You have to first find a way of improving your emotional state. And once you're feeling better emotionally, you will find a way of bringing the physical things into organization. In other words, you have to deal with the disorganization in your mind first, and then you can deal with the outward manifestations of it. So now, you know, there is a series of thought that Abraham recommends that you go through so that, your thoughts turn downstream. Remember, we spoke about this. When you turn your thoughts downstream, you start to feel better, and it's going with the flow of life. When you turn your thoughts upstream, you start to feel worse, and it's going against the flow of life. So that entire conversation that he had, where he said was that I keep collecting stuff, I'm not able to let go of clutter, all those thoughts are actually upstream thoughts. So now when you want to turn downstream, you start to turn the thoughts in this way. So the first thought that you begin with or is, I should throw this stuff away. I must be crazy to have accumulated so much junk. Okay, so the first thought, is it an upstream thought or a downstream thought? Let me know quickly. It's upstream, right? The second thought, I must be crazy to have accumulated so much junk. Again, it's an upstream thought. What was I thinking? Upstream. But when I do throw things away, before I know it, I realize that I did really need them. So again, this is an upstream thoughts. It gets worse and worse. Upstream thought. I've never been organized. Upstream thoughts. So here's Abraham's thoughts around these thoughts, okay? These statements are all valid and they're all upstream statements, and they do represent how you feel. But now, instead of making statements about how things are or how they have been, try to make statements that cause you to feel better. Okay, so whenever you're saying how things were in the past or how things are right now, all those are upstream thoughts because you're focusing on what's not working for you. So now they recommend that you start changing it. Okay, in other words, your goal here is not to make valid declarations of of truth about what is, but instead to make statements that give you a feeling of relief. So he's not actually asking you to make up things, but rather, write down things which give you a little bit of relief. Okay. So if you can find some consistent relief about the subject, your energy will shift and the feeling of being paralyzed will be replaced with good feeling action ideas. An improvement in the way you feel means an improvement in the alignment of energies between you and your inner being, resistance or allowing upstream or downstream. Okay, and now there are thoughts of how you start to go downstream with this. Okay, so the first thought is, I've done nothing wrong by pursuing my interest. Remember, he spoke about collecting things because he's interested in this. So I've done nothing wrong by pursuing my interest. Is this an upstream thought or a downstream thought? Tell me quickly, quickly, quickly. Just write you in the comments. Is this an upstream thought or a downstream thought? U for upstream, D for downstream. So I've done nothing wrong by pursuing my interest is actually a downstream thought, isn't it? because you're acknowledging that, yes, I have my interests, and because of that, I've done nothing wrong. It's logical that I would gather materials that support my interest. Again, this is downstream, right? Many people have interests or hobbies that appeal to them. Again, this is a downstream thought. I can remember my enthusiasm upon finding much of this stuff. Again, it's a downstream thought, right? I can see how my interest in these subjects caused me to find things to support my interest. Again, you feel good acknowledging it, and it's downstream. That is the law of attraction at work, downstream. I don't need to throw all of this away. Okay? So that's again a downstream thought. There's nothing wrong with my gathering things that interest me. Downstream. I'll find a way to store everything and catalog it so that I can find it when I need it. Downstream. I don't have to do it all at once. Downstream. I've been living with this a while and there's no urgency here. Downstream. In time, I'll figure out what to do with it. Downstream. In the same way I enjoyed finding these things, I will also enjoy organizing them. Can you see how, literally, like, just tweaking your thoughts a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, you just started going downstream with your thoughts, and suddenly you're feeling good. You're no longer looking at things and looking them at as clutter, but you're looking at those things, and they now represent things that interest you. Does that make sense? So like, just tweaking your thoughts a little bit in going downstream. Now, one of the ways that I find works really well for me, and I invite you to do this, is do journaling. So normally, like, I was just talking to my mom today, and literally it was like, I wake up, like, if I'm feeling a bit blah, I don't, and many times I can't figure out, mentally what that blah feeling is. So I'll just take a book and just start writing. So I'll just put thoughts from my head on the paper. So initially, I'm writing all upstream thoughts. I'm writing down all the, I'm upset about this, and, I should have done this. I haven't done that, and that didn't work out, and blah, 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 blah. So all the thoughts are going upstream. But very soon, what I find is that what starts shifting is that my thoughts turn downstream. Like, I will start writing down things which are looking at things from a totally different perspective, and my thoughts are turning downstream. And once they turn downstream, then I write more and more and more and more of the downstream stuff. And then suddenly my entire energy around that whole subject has completely changed, or that blah feeling that I was focusing on, it has completely changed. Okay. So I invite you to try this out, and like, just play around with it. Don't have many expectations of it, but like, it's this is the principle of it at work. Like, you will start with the upstream thoughts, and on your own you will slip into the downstream thoughts. So who's going to play with this? Who's going to play with this? Write down J in the comments below if you're going to do journaling around this. And then I'm going to continue reading. It's just a little more paragraph. So let me read it. It is of value to notice that even though nothing has outwardly changed, the feeling of being overwhelmed has lifted because you have focused your thoughts back into alignment with who you really are. We want you to know that whenever you're choosing to think unkind thoughts about yourself or anyone, you are counter to your inner being who only feels love for you. When you degrade, scold, or criticize yourself, you are out of alignment with the greater part of yourself. And there are no greater crippling thoughts than those of self-denigration. When you give yourself the benefit of the doubt, you realign with who you are. Some say that a refusal to look at your own shortcomings is a state of denial, that it is not healthy. We reply that pointing out your own shortcomings is the greatest state of denial, for it separates you from who you really are. Some people feel criticism for people who look for their own positive aspects. calling them arrogant or self serving. We reply that to be self serving is a good thing. For when you care enough to bring yourself into alignment with the greater part of who you are, while you have certainly served yourself, and you know that because you feel so much better, you are now in a position to be of value to others. But in your depression, you are of no value to any other, for you are separate from the stream of well being from which you offer value. Okay, so I hope this kind of contributed to you guys, because this was like, wow, this is, I've been doing this, and this particular book, and I pulled out a really short chapter. This, kind of gave me the insight into what is going on. Okay, so just being aware of whether your thoughts are upstream or downstream, and then consciously choosing downstream thoughts, and also consciously choosing to journal. And of course, when you journal, you're always going to start with things that are upstream for you, and then you're going to slide into the downstream mode. Okay, so playing around with that. So no matter what's going on with in your life, whether you think it is possible, whether you think it is impossible, if you start using these two tools that I shared with you today, you'll be able to have a shift in that. And once you have that inner shift, once you have that inner alignment, then what starts to occur, that the external shift, the external alignment just kind of falls into place with that, if that makes sense for you. Okay, so the two tools that I shared with you is, number one, if you think it's possible, it is. If you think it's not possible, it's not. So if you are, in that place of it's not possible, just shift it a little bit to ask what else is possible here. Bring in curiosity, bring in wonder, and start wondering what else is possible here. And by wondering, by being curious, you will start to pull yourself those things that will make things possible. So that's number one. Number two is based on the teachings of Abraham Hicks, and it's about choosing downstream thoughts, choosing downstream thoughts. And as you choose downstream thoughts, you come into vibrational alignment with your stream of well-being. And when you come in vibrational alignment with your stream of well-being, then whatever you are asking for, it starts to show up. So I hope that this has been a contribution to you guys. Let me know if you're having some aha moments, and if you can look at something and see things shifting for you, and play around with the journaling and see what shifts for you. So Neela says, every time when you feel stuck, all I do is call upon the angels and send it to the universe, and miracles do happen. So that's another way of playing with things. She has commented here, you can feel free to also use what she has shared. And of course, if you have some of the things that you have been doing which have been shifting and changing things for you, please do share it in the comments, so that people who read the comments, they're like, oh yeah, I get one more tool that I need. See, there are infinite tools that are available. I just, these two tools kind of popped at me when I was contemplating this topic today. And I said, wow, these are great tools that I can share with people today. And I'm sure each one of you has in your toolkit some amazing tools which have been creating some amazing shifts and changes for you. So feel free to share it. Okay, I also wanted to talk about something today. So, and this is kind of like a sneak peek, not exactly a sneak peek, but like a secret invitation to you guys. So on the 12th of December, I'm doing a 4-hour workshop. Okay, and this workshop is going to be online. And no, there's not going to be any replay for it. If you would like to be a part of that workshop, you have to attend live, okay? And what is this workshop called? It's called the Quantum Business Accelerator Workshop. So if you are a coach or a healer and you have a business, or you would like to create a business, and you would like to have, if you would like to create some of your programs and to sell out these programs, in this workshop I'm going to teach you the energetics of doing that. I'm going to teach you the energetics of creating a business which gives you high income months, the energetics of creating a business which will have you booked with your dream clients. Okay, so if this is something that you would like to have, just post workshop in the comments below, and I will give you the link to sign up for this workshop. Okay, so let me know in the comments below if you would like to be a part of this workshop. Again, it's going to be a live workshop, there's going to be no replay. So once you sign up, please make sure that you attend the workshop live, because otherwise you're not going to have access to it. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Thank you for contributing. Just by being with me, it's kind of you're contributing energy, and I tap into your energy, and I'm actually speaking to your energy. So I love hanging out with you guys. Thanks so much, and I will see you next week when I'm going to talk about something fun just like this, something to, about creation, about change, transformation, all that kind of stuff. If you have any topics that you would like me to talk about, feel free to post it in the comments below. So thanks once again, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you next week. And of course, if you would like to be part of the workshop, just put the word workshop in the comments below. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week. Bye.